Welcome to the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise podcast with global sales trainer and professional speaker Lois Coffey. Each week, it is her goal to share inspiration and education for you to have the best health and wealth and wisdom for your life.
Well, all right. Happy Friday, everyone who's tuning in. Healthy and Wealthy and Wise land. It is that time again for another live episode with an amazing guest. And I have an amazing guest all the way from over in the UK. At least I think that's where you are right now. You're not traveling, right? This is Barry Lynch going to be joining me today, and I'm super excited. For those of you guys who are joining us that are new, just as a reminder, I'm a sales trainer, coach, host of this podcast. We're over 200 episodes in. We get anywhere from 50 to 100 downloads per show, and I'm just so grateful. I just want to take a moment and say thank you to my community. Thank you to all of you who have been supporting and who are tuning in to really manifest your best life through your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom. And as you know, if you're tuning in live, please comment below #live and where you are tuning in from. And if you're tuning in on the recording, the replay, still comment below #replay, because this is meant to be a community of like-minded people who are here to support one another through this thing called life. So I'm super excited. Barry's actually only my second guest for the month. I've been kind of scaling back on guests and doing more monologue episodes. So Barry, this means that you're extra special because you made the cut. You are here as I'm turning the corner into my 200 plus episodes, and you've been in business for 31 years. So you have a lot of wisdom. I'm so excited to learn from you today. You've built franchise organizations. You have had a whiskey business, beauty business, which is very intriguing, knowing that you're a guy. I can't wait to learn more about this. And it all came about having built multiple seven-figure businesses because of paradigm shifts. So I know we're going to be talking about paradigm shifts today. So I'd love for you to share more about who you are, your why, your passion. How did you get to be where you are today?
That's great. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I do feel, I suppose the fact that you've invited me on and I'm the second person, gratitude all the way. Thank you very much. So I'm Barry Lynch. I'm based here in Dublin, Ireland. And that's okay. And I've been in business now 31 years. I always say that 27 of them, I was an unconscious competent. And the reason why I say that is because I didn't know what I was doing. So I built one of my first seven-figure businesses in that time. And in fact, no, I built two in that time, but I hadn't realized that I was caught up in the day-to-day of everything. And as a result, I didn't realize what I was doing. And it was only in the last 4 or 5 years when I sit back and changed all that, I had realized that I hadn't realized what I've been doing. And now that I had, and I changed my mindset and I suppose my attitude and my behaviors, my beliefs, all of a sudden then I started to realize that I could do more with my life. I could be happy, healthy, and wise. Whereas before that, I always say that I wasn't happy, I wasn't healthy, but I considered myself to be a wise man. But in fact, I wasn't, because I was doing it wrong.
Wow. And I love that. I put that down. I'm going to make sure that hits the show notes, because that says a lot right there. I just want you all to let that sink in and unpack what he shared. 27 years, you were an unconscious competent. And even within that, you built 2 7-figure businesses, but you weren't happy, right? Did I get all that?
Yes, indeed. Yep.
And you and I, the reason I just loved you right away and was like, yeah, this guy made the cut, because you said something that really hit my spirit, really hit me in the heart, which is really important to me, is that my guests bring heart to the show with their wisdom. Because I was in the same space. I can't say 27 years. I'm going to say 15 years that I was chasing money. I was chasing this thing called success and the American dream. I don't know what it's like in Ireland, if there's an Ireland dream, but it was such a lie. and I wasn't happy. In fact, I was depressed. I was working too much and all of the things that went with that. And you said in our pre chat, getting to know each other, money can't buy you happiness.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like, and it's even something, you just remind me of something there as you were talking. And it was, I remember going back that I didn't know at the time that, I thought that's the way it was to be. That's the way business was. I understood that, look, you just have to, take it and roll with it. But now I know, and I believe that you don't. You can decide what your destiny is, and you can almost have what you want. You don't have to work at what you need. But I remember a lot of people used to say to me, and I distinctly remember one night I was out and I was quite young. I was like maybe 20, 21 or 2. And I remember being in a nightclub, and 2 people in the same nightclub that night walked by me and said, "Oh, for God's sake, why don't you smile?" And I said, "It's only," I remember it. And now I actually, that's exactly what I used to look like. I never smiled. I was always thinking about, losing my success, or what am I going to do to avoid it? So I was worried about it all the time. So obviously that's the way I came across to people, and that's what they seen. So it must have been a case of that I looked as unhappy as what I was. And of course, it's only now when I talk about it, I remember these things. And it's funny when, when you say, someone says something like that to you, you think they're being sarcastic, but in fact, they're just trying to be nice. But at that time, that's what I picked up. Why? Because I had a bad self-image. I had a bad attitude. I didn't even like myself. So when somebody said something nice to me, I considered it as being sarcasm. They weren't trying to be funny, they were trying to be sarcastic. But now that I get people and I understand more about people, people are generally nice. When you're nice to them, they're nice back to you.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. I think it was last week. We talked about that mirror. These events, these comments from people, they're not by accident, right? Don't you think that they're meant to get your attention and help you to maybe
Yes.
wake up a little bit? Was that your wake up call or the beginning of your paradigm shift? I know we're going to be talking about paradigm shifts today.
Yeah, so, well, for me, it was more of a case of I had almost reached the pinnacle of what I wanted to do. So whilst I was younger, I had lots of goals, and I'd almost reached all of them. And then it went to the stage where I was trying to figure out, well, what do I do next? Where do I go next? What can I do to improve? And I couldn't figure anything. But what I do know is that I wasn't healthy and I wasn't happy, but I was starting to create wealth. And to me, that was success, because I had looked up at people, I suppose, dare I say it, Donald Trump. Many years ago, I did all his courses, and I looked up when I was so young in the 80s and all. And I suppose, it was the wealth of having everything, that you wanted, and money could buy you everything. So that's what created my motivation. So I had a desire and passion. I said I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 40, and I was, which was great. But I didn't know that there was like a pitfall at the end. And that's where the problems then started. So whilst I was in my early 40s, I started to notice that, I was an angry person. I was always angry. I was falling out with people. It was my way or the highway. And then it reached a stage where I had 4 high court actions. Now, high court action in Ireland, it means where somebody's suing you for 75,000 plus. It's the high court. And I was going I just so many things, but I took it that, look, people are suing me, so I start suing people. And it was like, well, I've got to do what they're doing. And then I woke up one day, I started drinking alcohol. I wasn't happy. Nobody knew what was going on in my life. I started to lose my hearing. There was so many different things that happened that you couldn't write it. It just was unbelievable. But it started to spiral out of control, and depression was definitely one of them. And it had gone to the stage where, I wasn't happy with me, I wasn't happy with my life, I wasn't happy with anything, and there was just nothing working. And of course, being in the bad place, lots of different things happened. But I woke up one day and I realized, I said to myself, I've got to change. Something's got to happen. It couldn't be the way I've reached half my life and the rest of my life is going to go. So I decided that what was a time when I was happy? I start looking back and reflecting, was there a time in my life when I was actually happy? And all of a sudden, I realized that when I was 18 and 19, when I used to drive around in my carpet cleaning business at that time, I used to listen to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I used to be singing along, la da 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 da, and I'd be listening to stuff over and over again because I had this passion and desire to be rich. So a big smile came on my face, and I decided I need to go back into personal development. That's what I need to do. So I picked up the computer, I opened the computer, and Bob Proctor popped up in front of me. I took a Bob Proctor training course, and oh my God, it changed my life. It absolutely changed everything. So when I talk about the depression, when I talk about the, losing the hearing and thinking I was becoming some sort of invalid, and I had about 450,000 I had taken from my company. I had revenue inspections where they had found this money that I'd taken to buy properties over many years, and they wanted that money back. They wanted that money back in the company. I just managed to get myself into a state where I had paid everything, resolved everything, sorted all my high court actions without it costing me money. This is the strange thing. So within 3 months of me realizing there was a problem to getting to the 1st of January of that year, it was either 2017, I think it was, everything was solved. I was like a new person, a new man with a new life.
Wow.
And everything changed from there.
Wow. Well, and I want to hear more about that paradigm shift to go a little bit deeper with that, Barry. So hold on one second. I do, because this is a community, I always love to acknowledge my peeps. Thanks so much, Candace May. She's agreeing with you. She's actually commented a couple times. Thank you so much for your commenting. This is also a great time, guys, to do a couple of things. Sharing is caring. Please hit the share button if you see value in this conversation about money not buying you happiness, and the paradigm shifts that we're going to be talking about next. And then, of course, my local hometown girl from SoCal, Elizabeth, thank you so much for tuning in. So this is a perfect time, guys. We're a third away into the show. If you have questions, that's where if you show up online during the live, you can ask questions of our guests. So please comment below with your questions. So I'd love to know, because you mentioned about your book, Paradigm Shift, and feel free to talk about how you came to write that and all of that. But how did you go from, you had a clean slate, it sounded like, which was a total gift, right? Yeah. A total, almost sounds like a miracle.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, for sure.
And then what? What happened after that? What did you do with this remembrance of what it is that you wanted to create?
Yeah, so when I was able to reflect back, I'd realized the excitement that I had. So at that particular time, I would have had the desire and passion to be healthy, wealthy, and rich. I wanted to be wealthy, okay? But I forgot about the health and the wise bit, I suppose. It was always just concentrating on the desire to be rich. So it was almost like I'd taken the wrong part out of the book and not included everything that it was talked about. I was just focusing on the money. But what I had established as when I came to realizing was that it was as a result of my beliefs and behaviors. So as I grew up with a great family, great parents, never wanted for anything. But of course, I adapted the beliefs. And as a result of that, I had the same beliefs as my dad, whereas work hard. The harder you work, the more you earn. So, of course, that's what I was doing. I was working, 14, 16, even 18 hours a day to create this wealthy, rich person. But what I had realized when I changed that shift, I had realized that, in fact, I could work less and earn more. By simply now, I had people with me and people that worked with me, but I had the wrong attitude towards them. I had the wrong attitude towards everything in life. As I said, I didn't like myself. I had a bad self-image. I didn't like that, I started losing my hair when I was like 14. I didn't like that, my ears were a little bit off, that my nose was a little bit off. I had problems with everything. But it was only when I got into the material that I now teach, I'd realized that, in fact, it was me was the problem. It wasn't everybody else. And when I started to grow to love myself and like myself for who I am, well, then I became the real me. And of course, I could help others as a result of that. So when we talk about paradigms, that's how I ended up with my book. It's called What They Don't Tell You About Paradigms. But that was, I left school quite young. So I always considered myself as uneducated. So whilst I might have had 2 7-figure businesses, I still considered myself as uneducated. If I were in a room with a lawyer, a solicitor, I always felt inadequate. And I felt intimidated. Anybody that was educated, I was intimidated by them. But what I had realized when I changed my thought process was that, in fact, that I probably had more of what would you call the day-to-day stuff, intelligence, than what they had. But that didn't make me any better. It just meant that I didn't feel intimidated anymore. And as a result of that, I didn't need to be angry, because when I wanted to resolve something, I used my intelligence to resolve it instead of my anger to resolve it.
Wow.
So it's almost like you're picking up, when you're speaking to someone, intuition, or, you're listening to them in a deep way, as opposed to arguing with them to try and get what you want. And that was the biggest change for me, whereas it changed my life. So I didn't have to be that angry person. I could control my emotions and feelings, and also remain in a higher vibration as opposed to a lower vibration and being angry all the time.
Wow. Do you have any? I love that. Thank you. First of all, I want to acknowledge that, because a lot of us do get stuck into that comparison, less than, not enough space. I'm actually teaching a class on that topic next week that I'll talk about later. How did you go from making that realization to then taking what I call aligned action every day? Because you were in this workaholic space.
Yep.
Right? There's no such thing as an overnight shift. I do know this. How long do you think it really took you to take ownership and being in alignment again? Because that's what I'm hearing is that paradigm shift helped you get back into alignment to your highest and best self, right?
Yeah. I would say probably realistically 2 to 3 month period for sure. Because what I had noticed was you start off with the thought process. So it's a bit like we all have knowledge, but the knowledge tends to sit there. It's what we do with the knowledge. So all the personal development that I'd done when I was 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, and in fact, up to about 25, I had listened to lots and lots of Napoleon Hill and Brian Tracy and there's just so many of them that I used to love it. I could open one of my old presses now and all the old CDs and all the old tape cassettes fall out, and that's what I used to love. That's what, I'd love listening to all this information. And it was only when I got into my early 40s, when I started listening to it again, I started to remember it. And I went, oh my God, I was listening, but I wasn't putting it into action. So it was knowledge. It wasn't actionable steps to allow it to sink down in, to break the old paradigm to create the new one.
I love it. Yeah, you're speaking my language, because I always talk about inspiration, constipation. I actually did a post about this yesterday. I didn't get a lot of comments and likes because I know it's a little controversial and in your face, but to be honest with you, Think and Grow Rich doesn't work. Law of attraction doesn't work.
Yeah.
Most people read it and they think about it
and do nothing.
But then what are they missing, Barry? You just said it.
Yeah.
Actually doing it, taking action and embodying it and taking that step every day. So there's a lot of people who love those books and tapes, but they don't actually get the transformation, because it's got to come from within, right? You got to feel it, would you say?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I would say so. I 100% agree with you. What I found, and especially with clients, and I can be selective with clients, because they've got to want to do something. And if they want to do something, you can show them how. But if they just are on the fence of, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't, it's not really going to work, because you can read all the information you want and you can create the knowledge you want. But if you don't do anything with it, nothing happens. Mm-hmm. I always find as well, when you have somebody that's accountable to you for that information, well, then it works even more powerfully. Because what you find is that if somebody has an interest in you and wants you to succeed, they're helping you. But if somebody has some other motivation behind them for that, it tends not to work. And that's why I find, a small percentage of people will do it on their own, but the majority of people won't. They tend to, it's a bit like when you go for a training course for a weekend. Maybe you're a solicitor, an accountant, and you're excited about all this information because it's going to change your life. Then you go and do it. And then for a week or so afterwards, you're still excited and things are starting to work out and you feel changes, and then boom, it stops. And then you can't hardly even remember after a couple of months what you've learned. And that's because you haven't action stepped your way to allowing it to change it in a repeatable basis.
Yeah. And having a coach, like we always say, Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time, right? He could have been probably pretty awesome on his own. Yeah. Pretty good, right? Yeah. But the coach, of course, one of the best coaches of all time that he got the opportunity to work with, raised him, higher than he could have on his own. So that accountability piece is so critical. And 2 to 3 months time of applied knowledge, which is wisdom, right? They say wisdom is the application, the actual embodiment of the knowledge. That's really amazing. That's a really short period of time. So do you have any advice for our audience? And then I'd like for you to share what's inside of your book that can help support them in their best health, their best wealth, and their best wisdom, having their own paradigm shift and then taking action. Do you have any tips that can be applied today for them to, besides taking action, of course, but how do you even know what action to take? Any advice on that?
I suppose, you see, there's a couple of things. There's probably 3 things that we got to look at. And one is our self-image. The second one is our confidence. And the third one is our decision-making process, because your decisions are based on what happens. Okay. So if you're a bad decision maker, well, then of course you keep putting it off. So you tend not to make the decision on it anyway. If you have low self-esteem, your confidence is going to be low. So you got to build your confidence. And then your self-image. If you've got to be really careful what you tell yourself. So if you continue to tell yourself that you're ugly, or you're no good, or you're stupid, or you're no good at reading, or you're no good at writing, or you're no good at business, and because people do that, but they don't realize that you have a server mechanism that's constantly running in the background. So what you tell it, you're feeding it. If you tell it regularly, well, then you're creating the paradigm that surrounds that. So when you become aware of what you tell yourself, you can change it. So if you do something on a repeatable basis, so, like what I said, I didn't like myself. What I did was I started to say how good a person I was, how healthy I looked. So I'd stand in the mirror and say to myself, was it difficult? You betcha. Did I believe it? No. But the difference is after a period of time, you start to believe it. Why? Because you keep telling yourself the same thing. And that changes your self-image. But you can do that with anything. So when we talk about, say, somebody in business, and say they have a business and, they're breaking even, they're not doing well. Okay. They might have a paradigm around money. They might find that, they make money, they lose it. They make money, they spend it. And they never seem to get out of that rut. So when you find that you start to look at it in a different way, and you change the point of view towards it, and you start to adapt a different, it's almost like, standing in front of the mirror and telling yourself that this is what's going to happen. You're creating the person that you want to be in the future, but you're visualizing it right now. And then you're starting to change your beliefs based on that. So it therefore changes the image of what you see. And over time, then you find it starts to change. And it happens, in a short period, 2 to 3 months, 90 days, 120 days. But when you do, you go, oh my God, I can't believe that's happened. So that's what I did. When I used to do Facebook Lives, I used to be terrified. I could mix up my words. I would forget what I was going to say. Why? Because I was looking at me. I was looking at me, looking back at me. But when I got over that, then I found that I could talk properly. I remembered what I was going to say. I remembered, everything about it. I liked the person that was looking back at me, so it didn't bother me.
I love it. I love it. And you're speaking my language with embodiment. And this is actually a great quick question. I want to have you answer this question really quick, like in the next 60 seconds, and then we'll talk about your book. But and Elizabeth, I will tell you, I'm actually going to do my next podcast episode is on a technique that can help you with this. But I'm really excited to hear what you say. What do you use as a technique while experiencing those anger reflexes? So she has that anger might manifest differently, but they are there. What can you recommend?
So there are a couple of things. So when I look back at, I was an angry person, and everything resulted as when I grew up, I had red hair. So they associate, oh, you're an angry person with red hair, and that's the belief I took on. But then I realized that in fact, no, that was just because of I adapted through somebody else through a belief. But what for me, what it was, and how I help other people with anger or stress or anger, stress or anxiety, is where I will give them a technique to follow. So for me, I started off with an emoji on my phone where it just said smile Barry. So this is when we go back to like when I was saying smile Barry. So when I say that now, I smile because I think somebody saying that to me years ago. So I used to set my alarm clock for 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and maybe 4 or 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. in the evening. And then the alarm would go off, I'd pick up the phone, I'd look at it, and then I'd smile. So I'd done that for maybe 3 months. And then I found that as a result, I started to become happier. Why? Because it raised my level of awareness by the little emoji and the alarm clock going off to make me realize that don't get caught up in the anger. But the other way as well is where when you become aware of your actions and emotions, if you have a bad self-image is normally it's the outside world dictating your inner world. But when you allow the outside world dictate your inner world, well, then you become that. But when you start to create the outside world and you dictate your inner world, well, then you change from the inside out as opposed from the outside in. And as a result of that, then you start to be able to control your emotions. You can't do it all the time because we could be tired, something's
We're
happened.
human. We're still
Yeah.
human.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what I always say is for me, when somebody says something to me now, I don't get angry. But here's one of the techniques I use that has worked so well for me. So this is the second one. So when I say many years ago that my motivation was money. So my wife used to say to me, your favorite song is ABBA, money, money, money. That's what she used to say. So now even when I say it there now, I'm smiling because that's what I think. So what I do is if I'm in company with somebody and they say something that I don't like, I start singing the song in my head. They don't know I'm doing it. So I'm going, money, money, money. And then I start smiling inside. And I'm not even listening to what they're saying, but it controls my emotions and feelings attached to this current situation. So I found that is a really good technique to use. The third technique that you can use if you want to get rid of something where maybe you're an angry person and you find in certain situations, you can put an elastic band around your wrist. And every time you feel yourself getting angry, snap the band. And that will change your brain immediately to concentrate on the band just hurting you as opposed to you getting angry. And after a period of time, it'll work.
Wow, Elizabeth, I hope you wrote those down. That's beautiful. And the second one reminds me of the anchoring technique that I'm going to be teaching in my class next week and doing a podcast episode. I love that. And Elizabeth, just so you know, she says music is a huge part of my language. So I love it. Thank you so much. I know we're gonna drop the link to his book in the show notes, but your book Paradigm Shift is what you're sharing with the audience today. Any quick thoughts on that book?
Yeah, so it is about your habits, your beliefs, and your behaviors. When we talk about a paradigm shift or changing your paradigms, if you want to be successful, if you want to be healthy, if you want to be wealthy, you've just got to change your beliefs and behaviors. You've got to change your habits. So an example would be if you find that, when you get up in the morning, you probably find that you get up at the same time. When you watch TV, you probably find that you sit in the same chair. That's your paradigms. That's what makes you comfortable. So if you want to change that, you've got to make yourself be uncomfortable. If somebody come in and sat in your chair that you watch TV in, you'd ask them to move. Why? Because if you have to sit somewhere else, you're uncomfortable. But when you get used to making yourself uncomfortable, well, then you can change your habits. So that means if, you want to create a business of your dream and you need to ring 10 people a day, but you're afraid to ring them because you have a bad self-image, so you won't make the calls. But if you start to tell yourself, well, I don't care what they say. I want my business. I have the desire and passion to do this. Well, then you create the habit of doing it every day. And within a short period of time, it's not a problem anymore. You keep doing it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So grateful for you today. So guys, look in the show notes for that link. It'll be showing up in the iTunes in my YouTube channel, all of that kind of stuff by next week. As a reminder, you guys, if you want to do like what Elizabeth did was beautiful. She helped create the content that Barry and I shared today. So your questions matter. You matter. So please jump inside of the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise Facebook community. You can find that on my website. You can just go to Facebook and look for Lois Kofi, healthyandwealthyandwise.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn or subscribe to my YouTube channel. And to go with this amazing topic today, next week, Thursday, June 23rd, I am going to be teaching my next hour-long magnetic mind class about magnetizing your best health, your best wealth, your best wisdom. It's not just focused on business. So if someone's wanting to impact your health this summer, please attend. I'm going to be showing you a 5-minute exercise on how to shift out of that negative experience you might still be manifesting or magnetizing in your life, because we are, whether we like it or not, right, Barry, the predominant creators in our life. And if you're always going outside for the answers, guess what? You're probably not going to like what you create and what you attract or manifest, because as he said, it's all about going within and embodying your success. And it takes some reprogramming, it takes some action. And that's what I want you guys to learn about next week. Also, this is a new thing. I have only announced it one other time. I am looking for subscriber donors to support my podcast. I want to get this out to the masses, much bigger, much faster. If you become a patron, if you go to patreon.podbean.com/Lois Kofi, we'll also put that in the show notes. There's advantages. Being a patron has its privileges. You get coaching, all sorts of bells and whistles and opportunities to get shout outs on my show, marketing yourself through me to my tribe that's growing by the thousands every year. So if you want to be a monthly contributor, please go there. And I will also drop the link to my Magnetic Mind class for June 23rd at 1 p.m. Pacific time in the show notes as well. So please sign up, bring a friend. Sharing is caring. And Barry, I have just one last question for you as we bring it home. I ask this of all my guests at the end. When you hear the phrase healthy and wealthy and wise, what does it mean for you?
I suppose it's everything in a nutshell, because as I mentioned earlier, it almost signifies my life, from the start to the end. And towards the end, it's starting to become healthy, wealthy, and wise, which wasn't the case at the beginning. So for sure, it would definitely be of an importance to me.
Awesome. I love it. And you have an amazing story. It goes so well with my community, with my purpose and my passion. So thank you so much, Barry. Really appreciate you. Just want to give you guys a heads up as we wrap it out here. No live show next week, but I will be doing some surprise monologues, really tuning into my inner channel, my intuition for what I'm seeing are messages that you guys are wanting to hear. So I will be doing another episode, if not today, Monday, on how to magnetize your best health with a 5-minute daily exercise that can help you improve that. So stay tuned to that. And then, of course, as always, we'll have more guests in July. We're going to be talking on the topics of shame and grief. It's going to be really powerful. I know I've personally changed my relationship with shame and grief as I've done a lot of inner work, like Barry referenced earlier. And so we're going to be covering some really life-changing topics. So please invite your friends to join us inside this community. And until next time, guys, here's to your best health, your best wealth, your best wisdom. We love you. And I hope you guys have an amazing Father's Day out there. Happy Father's Day weekend, everyone. Bye-bye for now.
Well, all right. Thank you for attending another amazing Healthy and Wealthy and Wise show. Thank you so much. Please subscribe, download, leave a review or a rating. And also, if you felt like you could benefit from some help, maybe some magnetic mind support, maybe some lead generation and sales strategy, I would love to gift you a free month of my membership, or go to bookacallwithlois.com. That's right, www.bookacallwithlois.com. And if you haven't had a one-time free strategy session with me, that's my gift to you today for attending all the way to the end. Here's to your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom.